So, point number one, you have to remain calm when things go wrong, because they go wrong all the time. And you have to be quick on your feet. Especially when you're speaking with clients, etc. I mean, you've got to be extremely opportunistic. You don't know if you're going to get a meeting with that client again. You have only a specified amount of time, and just maybe if you can figure out how to get the conversation going, you might get more out of them. They might reveal more of what's going on behind the scenes, etc. So rule number one, things never go as planned. So my advice is, it's in the martial arts, it's called mind like water, right? You just go with the flow. So this is a perfect example of that. Now put me to the test and see if I can pass. But just so everybody knows, my background is I spent 15 years in biotech and big pharma before I went into software. And then after software, I went into consulting for a company called Lab Answer. And we did really well. And it was during that time that I came up with this concept. Now, it's not a novel concept, but I was working with Google X at the time, and I, came up with this idea which ended up being called by Accenture Research Life Science Cloud. But when I wrote the original white paper on it, it was called the virtual biotech. And what the concept was, hey, for software companies and for companies, there's this problem out there that says we don't really have a stable R&D IT environment. Everywhere we go, we run into network issues, we run into database issues, and we run into a plethora of issues. How could we come up with a concept that would kind of normalize that and ground those issues that a lot of software companies see with clients and services companies see with clients? And so the concept was, let's start to create a more industrial approach or industry approach platform that manages a lot of the R&D IT environment so that it's uniform across many of the big clients, the Pfizers, GSK, Merck's, AstraZeneca's of the world, etc. So develop that concept, and it turns into Accenture buys Lab Answer and rebrands it along the way to Research Life Science Cloud. And fortunately, they were working with Merck at the time on this concept and something similar. So I went from there, and then I went back into pharma. I actually went back to as the global head of R&D IT at AstraZeneca after leaving Lab Answer, which was acquired by Accenture at that point. So, the good news is I have the experiences on all sides of the fence, which is important to have, because it sometimes it teaches you who you could potentially be dealing with, or what it's like to be in other people's shoes. So that's point number two. You got to learn how to put yourself in other people's shoes, no matter what you're doing in life, because in a way it's called empathy, right? You have to be able to empathize with what they're doing and what they're going through, what their problems are, what their stresses are, etc. If you can do that, and you do have that ability to be analytical and have conversations with folks, again, you start to make that discussion or that meeting much more comfortable for people. And it's in those moments that people, again, will warm up to you and brainstorm with you, which is point number 3 or 4, 3 here. Don't underestimate the power of brainstorming and ideation with your clients, right? But again, it goes back to what I said before. You have to understand why you're there, and being in their shoes, what they have to get done. But there may be opportunity for solutioning, or what I call visioneering, and where you're able to really start to think through some of their problems and understand their pain points, and even maybe make a leap and say, I know we're here around this specific problem, but it's, it sounds like your problem is bigger and your solution space is much bigger than what you're describing. And they may agree with you and they say, yeah, you're right, but we have to focus on this first, or, oh, I didn't think of that before. And this is where you start to really build relationships. Point number 4 is that you really want to have as many of these where they consider you an expert an expert. In other words, a trusted advisor relationship. If there's one KPI that you could put on yourself as a consultant, or in a company like Zifo, is how many trusted advisor relationships do we have? So if you're walking into 2021 and you say, well, geez, I don't have any, which could easily be the truth for some folks on the phone here. I may have 3, I may have 5, I may have 30, right? So you're doing pretty good. So that person that has the 15, 20, 30, you need to start mentoring the folks around you that don't have any. And this is a critical point number 5, is that mentoring is a very, very important thing. Fortunately, I've been around Zifo for a while, so I know that there's a culture at Zifo of taking care of each other. But just be known that what you want to exude as Zifo is that culture of, hey, these guys are different. They have a really good culture. I've never seen any type of behavior that says, there's any sort of toxicity or anything there. So this is a very critical concept here, and it's one thing that Lab Answer had. It was a culture first type of organization. There was no backstabbing. There was rallying around solutioning and problem solving. There was no, of course there's judgment, right? But there was this concept of, okay, we're going to shoot for the moon. We're going to try for perfection, but we all know we're never going to be perfect. So let's take it easy on each other as we're on this journey. And this is a really critical way of working. And if for some reason you don't see that in pockets of Zifo today, there's nobody else besides yourself, the person that I'm talking to right now, that needs to take that under their wing and make it a part of your DNA. And I will tell you, and it's been written, books have been written, great t-shirts, all types of slogans, culture eats strategy for breakfast, but culture actually eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And why, what does that mean, or why am I saying that? And that's because culture makes it so much easier to make a strategy work. Everybody's on the bus, everybody's willing to work together, solve problems, etc. And all of a sudden, your strategy problems, they melt away. So that's some advice there. Now let's just get back to customers. Customers are difficult, and customers are great. But the goal is, how do you convert those difficult customers? How do you get in their shoes, on the same wavelength, and prove to them that you're the person or the group to be working with? And the truth is, it takes a lot of experiences. It takes a lot of pre-organization behind the scenes, so that when you get to that meeting, to that table, you're prepared. And you really never know who you're dealing with until you get there sometimes. So you can never really assume. And then point number 6 is, you never know who you're talking to. and they could be somebody in the organization that you may think is entry level or maybe very junior to other people in the room. Don't make the mistake and try to just satisfy the VP or the SVP in the room, et cetera. Treat everyone equally, because you never know, and this has happened to me, I've seen it in my 30 years, you never know if that junior person is going to be in charge next week. Or is the brilliant person in the room that's calling the shots for the SVP or the VP that, be honest with you, doesn't really know much, just knows that they're in charge of the budget. They've been around the block. They know how to make sure they get things done, decision making, whatever it is. But the people in the room never underestimate who they are and how they're going to contribute to the decision making and the overall projects. So that's some, pretty key advice that I've followed and I've learned. The thing is, because you're going to be, again, you have to kind of gauge who you're working with. Some people are going to have colder personalities. They're not interested in the friendship side of the house or the chit chat, but you will find that some of the biggest projects and the biggest relationships you build, you can end up having some sort of out of work relationship with them, or you end up becoming friends with these people, and you spend time with them out of work. You may over time do certain activities with them and stuff, and so that just has to be checked and gauged. But you will find that we're all dealing with human beings, and people enjoy that stuff. So again, getting back to the don't under or overestimate who you're talking with. You lead with facts, you lead with your experiences, your use cases, your case studies, and you see how that evolves over time. But the most important thing that you want to come out of that first is a trusted advisor relationship. And not just for this project, but for a year from now, when someone picks up the phone and says, "Oh, I remember that person. I really like them. And you know what? They were smart. I'm going to call them and ask them what do they know about CTMS or ELN or LIMS or whatever it may be." And they call you first, or you're on their Rolodex. They're the top 5 people that they call when they're problem solving or looking towards that next project. So that's a big part, I think, of what I do. I think, to be honest with you, that I probably have a little bit of ADD, and so, but I've learned to make that work for me. So, what am I talking about? Well, sometimes I can, get easily distracted, and the way I make that work is I really try to know as much as I can about a lot of different things. And so that makes you very applicable, right? That also can make you a conversationalist, because sometimes you're not just talking to someone to learn about their project. You're also talking to them to get a really good feel of what they're doing in their particular area of drug discovery or material discovery, chemical company, whatever it may be, consumer packaged goods. And the reason I'm mentioning all those companies is because there's a huge overlap of what companies do, especially from an informatics perspective. So chances are, if you understand drug discovery, you will quickly understand catalyst discovery at a major oil and gas company. It's different, but the processes can be very similar. The high throughput experimentation can take similar approaches, etc. So don't be afraid, and this is, I guess, point number 7. Do not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. Don't get out of your comfort zone with a client early on, but don't be afraid to go and learn. Every day you should be learning something new. And this is the critical part of increasing your chances of becoming a trusted advisor. You know, if you don't know something about, if you don't know what really the ins and outs of cloud computing, find a book and read about it. Call on one of your trusted people that you work with in industry that are, and say, hey, you know, this is so and so, and we met, and you know, we worked on this project together. I was just wondering if you had a half an hour to kind of make me understand, you know, some of your pain points when it comes to cloud computing, right? So that keeps the relationships going. But do not be afraid to get outside your comfort zone and go and learn new things. I could spend probably 2 hours just going through lists of new things that are happening that I'm not an expert in, but I need to understand more than I know now. New modalities in drug discovery, new ways of running clinical trials, whatever it may be. You know, deep learning. What does that even mean? Why is a deep learning algorithm different than a traditional machine learning algorithm? All these things, you know, well, the old adage is knowledge is power, right? And this is true. And this just helps you become a better trusted advisor. And you know, that's obviously the theme of what I'm talking about. You have to have patience. You have to know when to push, when not to, because the last thing you want to do is push a client away from you, or a pre-client, because you know you're being too aggressive with them. And there's no reason in those situations where you can't have crucial conversations with someone and you can explain your side of the story. Like, hey, just so you know, I'm in charge of this, this program, or this, within my company, and I've been tasked to do this, right? You don't have to go into super detail. And so part of my questioning is, I want to understand how serious you are around what you're doing. And is this something, that you foresee as a project, or is this just, are you just asking me a lot of questions to educate yourself? Whatever. It's okay to have those crucial conversations, and you can do it in the right way where everybody is fine with it. But you'll learn, and especially as you go through, let's say you're a developer, a BA, a project manager, etc., and you say, well, this is my career path. I want to do this for so many years, and then I want to get into pre-sales, or I want to get into solution architecture. I want to get into sales, whatever it is. Just remember that everything you do in your role today will make you a better whatever you want to be tomorrow. And I can tell you from experience, I've been a PM, I've been a developer, I've been a BA, I've been, I think I was a data scientist before they even called them data scientists. But I've taken all that experience and I roll it up into now my everyday experiences of being educated on those things with, hands-on education, so that I know when people are telling me something, it's real or it's an artifact. As a PM, if you've never been a developer, you might not truly be able to push back with confidence that when a developer tells you it's going to take 6 months or 3 months to write that, when if maybe you were a developer earlier on, you're like, oh my God, I could have done that in 3 weeks. So, those are some just anecdotal experiences that you want to draw from everything that you do in the role that you have today to do it better. And I think if you can do that, you'll be super successful. I think I'll stop there, because I know I just said a lot in a short amount of time, and I think what I'm trying to give everyone is some really pragmatic experience. But please ask me all the questions you want to ask me, and I'll answer it the best I can.
Hey, John, this is Ayyappan here.
Yep, I can hear you.
I'm extremely sorry for missing to send the invite. It must have totally upset your schedule. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I should say you wonderfully took it in your stride despite that, and improvised with the mind like water analogy. It so fit the topic as well, the way you started it. My question to you is, irrespective of who we are talking with, what the personal opportunities are at that moment, there is often some hesitance, at least for me, in approaching and engaging with new people, with strangers, with new business partners or clients. Or how do you overcome that? How do you overcome that?
Well, this is a great question. So there's there a lot of times there are hesitancy. You got to find out what's causing that hesitancy. So sometimes it's a lack of experience that the other
Mhm.
person has. Maybe they're new and they've been told to go do this. There's sometimes a lack of trust um, in vendors. Let's just be really clear about that. Sometimes that's a learned behavior, um, and then sometimes there's just that lack of personal confidence that that person has. There, a lot of
Mhm.
scientists. If we talk about scientists, a lot of scientists are introverted, and they're not comfortable speaking about things because they're a lot of times, and not just scientists, people are worried that people think they don't they I don't and I do understand it, and I don't know. I do have this issue sometimes. It depends how far you get over your skis or you're out of your comfort zone, but sometimes people just get really nervous about speaking about something, and for one is they feel they may be perceived that they don't know what they're talking about, or
Mhm.
the other is they're worried that they're not able to articulate it well enough to the other person about what they're saying, and they get nervous about that too. But there are a couple different reasons why it happens.
Mhm. I understand, John. Yeah. Um, we have a new question from Aishwarya Balaji. So she's asking, when you know you are outside your comfort zone, any advice on how to get over the fear of sounding stupid?
uh, um, yeah, I mean, so this is a confidence problem, right? Um, you, I don't know if there's, I don't know if a class can teach you to have more confidence in yourself. Um, but there are methods to doing this, and so I really encourage people to read about, get a book on building confidence, right? If you can't do it yourself, read a book on building confidence. But confidence a lot of times comes with being prepared, um, and you have to be prepared, and you have to feel that I know more about this subject than most people in the world. Now, the reason I use the word most is my dad didn't teach me a lot of lessons in life, but one he told me is there's always somebody smarter than you, and there's always somebody stronger than you. So you better be careful what you say and how you do it, right? So this is a very true thing. There, you can only prepare yourself so much, but what you want to do is you want to be confident that you've researched it, an area, you have personally experienced that area, um, um, and you have confidence that there's nobody or very few people in the world that know more about this than you do. Now, I'm not telling you to be arrogant about it. What I'm telling you is that with that in your mind, you can be confident when you're talking about that. And it doesn't, and when I say don't be arrogant, so you could make statements about things that you're very confident about, and then you can follow those up quickly with a question just to make sure there's nobody out there that knows more about it than you do. So what you're doing is you're giving them opportunity to become part of the brain trust that you're bringing to this conversation or this meeting or whatever, and you're assessing very quickly in the crowd, is there anyone in there who knows what I know or knows more? And if you can figure out how to do that, you're gonna be amazed at how people relax, how people volunteer, how someone might say, I heard what you said, but I don't think that's true. I thought it was more like this. And now you've got the conversation started. Now you're saying, hey, you're right. Um, I think you're right. My experience was just with this bit, but now that you've mentioned that, I see what you're saying. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So it's leading with confidence, not arrogance, and it's giving the opportunity for the environment to either agree with you, add to what you're saying, or disagree with you. And that disagreement isn't a bad thing. It just allows you then to get on their wavelength. Does that make sense?
Understood. Yeah. Yes, John. Yeah. So another question. So people who are starting out with networking, the biggest challenge is to actually find a way to approach people to strike an initial conversation. And another is to find a way to keep this conversation going. So what are the few crucial things that they can do to get going?
Um, in an initial conversation, things
Yes.
to get that.
First, how do you
Yeah.
find, how do you approach people to start that conversation? And then how do you keep it going?
Yeah. There are icebreakers. So here's books on icebreakers. And the reason I'm telling you this is the willingness to go improve yourself and learn these things is going to take effort from you. And for those of you on the call that are going to go look for books and do this and actively want to improve and stuff. If you just listen to me and you take it and maybe you're a genius and you got it all, you're going to go, that's fine too. But you're going to have to work on this. Okay. This is just, for some people, it's natural. A lot of things in life, for some people, they're natural, right?
Mhm.
But the naturals get surpassed sometime if they don't improve or work on their skill sets. And there's a lot of sports cases with this. There's a lot of people in life that surpassed other people because they were determined that they were going to be that person, even though they weren't naturally born to be that person. So that's lesson number 8. What you want to find out, and this goes back to that friendship part again, is so you have to ask some icebreaker questions, first of all, to understand, is this person more of a colder personality or a warmer personality, right? And then you also have to figure out what excites this person that you're talking to. Is it cars? Is it airplanes? Is it work? Is it science? You have to figure out in those icebreakers pretty quickly what makes this person tick. What's going to get them talking. And you can see it sometimes if you ask a question. I used to do a lot of scuba diving when I was younger. I'm really upset that I don't these days. But and what I found is if that person that you're meeting with was a diver, forget about it. You're like, it's like a brotherhood. You're in, right? You
Right.
start talking about technical diving, wreck diving, river, all types of stuff. So you just found that one thing that they really enjoy in life, and you can assimilate to it. So there are icebreakers, there are those conversations, but it's that assessment of who are you dealing with? Colder, warmer, hot? Is it all business? They don't want to talk about anything except, hey, we've got this ELN to replace, or we've got this work to do with this scientific informatics solution, whatever it may be. Then that's what it is, and that's what you stick to. So I think it's really about being able to quickly assess who you're talking to.
Right. Right. So, is there a possibility of, researching about the person you will be talking to and, measuring their interest before you go to the meeting? And if yes, what kind of research do you do?
Yeah. So the great thing about LinkedIn is almost everyone's on it, and there's a whole history of everything about them. The
Right.
downside is, and I don't care, but the downside is they could know that you're looking at them, right? So,
Right.
but for some people, they're like, hey, they're doing their due diligence. They're before they're meeting with me, they're finding out who I am, and
Mhm.
I think that's great. So I'm perfectly fine with that. But again, you don't always know who you're dealing with. So, um, so if you want to do it in private mode or whatever, where they don't
Mhm.
know, then that's one thing. But this is part of that the work that you have to do, the pre-work, and understanding as much as possible who you're dealing with, where they came from. And this is one of the icebreakers that I've used is I saw somebody who worked on JC virus at some point, and I worked on JC virus years ago, or worked on a similar virus, right? So part of that icebreaker could be, hey, I looked at your your LinkedIn resume, and it says that you worked with SV40. That's pretty cool because my lab used to do that, right? And right away, depending on the spectrum of cold to hot, they're going to be excited about talking about that, or they're going to be like, yeah, I used to do that. Next, right? So, but you have to try. You can't just, you have to give it your best shot on those icebreakers and trying to kind of meld the minds a little bit and start to forge that relationship.
Hey John, this is SJ. Today you are an industry thought leader. You have a lots of years of experience, but going back to the time when you have just joined the industry, can you look back and tell us, hey, you know what? Certain things I did back then really helped me, or now that I have learned, I have become much wiser. I should have done certain things differently. Can you share from your experience?
Yeah, I know. I think so this is a great point. I think this is life today. Like if you look, let's use the iPhone as an example. The first release iPhone. If we all tried to go back and use that today, we would be like, oh my God, we can't even use this tool. It's too slow. It only has these couple things, the buttons, blah, 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 blah. So it's evolved, right? And we've evolved as people. And we've taken all those experiences, all those lessons learned, and we're trying to constantly improve. So I think one lesson I had was coming out of big pharma. Now I'm working in a scientific software, and I'm at a small startup biotech, and I'm in front of the CEO and I'll just say his lieutenants. And I was talking about fail fast, which is a concept in drug discovery and big pharmas. They don't want to spend 6 months, 6 months or more on a drug that's not going to pan out, right? That's a waste of money, a waste of time and effort. So they're always trying to figure out, can we prove there's toxicity early? Can we do all the, the rule of 5, all these things? Well, here I am in front of this team at a startup, and I'm talking about all this, and they got really upset with me because their comment to me was, John, that's not us. That's not how biotechs work. If we produce shoe polish, so be it. We're going to sell that shoe polish so we can go invest in something else and keep this company going and grow it, right? So that was a huge lesson learned for me. Just that tempering what I'm saying, instead of putting that out there as a strategy for people I don't know and groups that I don't know, it would have been much better if I asked the question. And this gets back to that confidence part again, is instead of going in with you think is confidence, you have to assess, well, I'm not in big pharma, I'm in a little biotech, maybe my words are going to be different. So I could have started that engagement by asking questions, and it probably would have gone a lot better. So that lesson learned for me is how to approach different groups that supposedly are doing the same thing, but in reality have different experiences. And so you need to tease those out with the right questions before you get into what could be perceived as an arrogant talk, as opposed to an informative talk. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, John.
Yeah.
Another question that I have is, and I have seen you juggling, I don't know how many balls every day, right? You have your podcast, that's going on. every Friday at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Central Time. And I recommend everyone to sign up for the podcast or at least watch some of the recording. That's one of the fascinating sessions that I look forward to every week. John's interaction with many of the industry leaders, talking about their personal experience and sharing their insights. And you have your 2015 visionaries, which is growing. I see you adding new members every day, and then you still find time to contribute to the Pistoia UAKB project. Pick up some of my calls. I know I call you more often than not, and you still find time for me, to share some of the experience, work with us, and case in point being today's talk that's ongoing now. Where do you find the energy to keep going at this pace after being in the industry for so long?
That's a great question. I think I'm a little driven, right? So I'm probably a little driven. I mean, you've had these personality tests and stuff. The CEO of Lab Answer and I were side of each other when we took ours, and ours were like identical, right? So I'm driven. I want to look. Lesson number 8: life is short, right? So I want to leave the world a better place than when I found it. And there's so much work to be done. And I'm passionate about getting these data environments and process environments cleaned up. The culture change that has to happen in the R&D industry. And so, I want to give. I'm in this mode of giving back a little bit. So Rockstars of R&D was this concept of, hey, Hollywood, Bollywood, these actors, they get paid so much money, and they're always, self-congratulating themselves and look at us, look at me. And I wanted to bring that more to the R&D world, where the science and the technology is really impacting people's lives, but yet there's nobody giving them accolades. So what I wanted to do is make sure that I call out people that I see in the R&D space who are making a difference, and give them some recognition, and share their experiences, so like everyone on this call can learn from it. I didn't. What did I have to go through? What are the hoops? What are the steps? What's the things that I had to put up with to eventually, get this big role somewhere, or write this piece of code that made a huge difference to the world, or whatever. So that's really what it's about for me. But I am probably a little bit of a workaholic, and so lesson number 9 is work-life balance is critical. For those of you who are going to have children, you're all going to hear this from everyone. Oh, they grow up so fast. They really do. If you think about it, in the span, look how fast time has gone for you so far. 20 years has gone like that, and that's the time span when your kids grow up and they move. They move out of the nest. So you got to really learn to cherish the time that you have, and you really need to teach your kids how to become critical thinkers. You are your children's mentors, not your teachers. Remember that. And if you don't think you are, reassess that over the week or the weekend, because that's a really important part of life. Gave a little extra there.
Thanks, John. I do see, one more question, which again touches up that point that you covered, right? How do you connect when there's so much uncertainty about what the other person is looking for? How will they understand a subject? How do my knowledge match up with the audience? Is there anything more that you can add to that? Because that seems to be that core challenge that many in Zifo is trying to overcome.
So this is part of my I guess, so here, I think it's part of my DNA. Let me explain. So I didn't get my PhD in focusing on one thing, or not one thing, but one research area. I've become a little more of a generalist. In other words, I try to know as much as I can about everything, every bits of science, like, you know, building my own telescopes or you know, building things myself, you know, using your hands and trying to understand and work through things as much as possible. So I'm like you know, I said before, mind like water, but I also, you know, mind like a sponge. I try to absorb as much as I can, and at the very minimum, if I don't have time to read the whole book or read the whole paper, I'll read the introduction and I'll read the conclusion, and you know, it's almost like cliff notes in a way, but I'm always just trying to learn as much as I can given the amount of time I have, etc. And it's that empathy part again. It's just there's so much overlap in life. You know, when you're in that room that those people are struggling with something, right? So if you can find common ground and understand their struggles and their pain points, people are usually willing to tell you about those because they want them to go away. And that's where you know, that's another area where you can get really, you know, people to talk about things. But it's just it's a combination of being able to put yourself in their shoes based on your experiences or experiences that you read about. I guess I think we're on number 10. Here's a big one. It's one thing to learn from your own mistakes, and that's a very isolated learning world. What you want to do is you want to learn from others' mistakes, right? And not just their mistakes, but their successes, but really their mistakes. You want to learn from others what not to do as well, because there's not enough time in your life to go do all those other things that other people are doing. So why not learn what worked and didn't work for them and take that in as your own experience? And that's something else that I've done that I think has helped me over the years. Like, I'm really listening around failure and why it failed for others, so I can take that in and kind of not only consume but assume that experience as my own. And that's I think part of my success in being able to get in front of an audience and work with them. Make sense?
Definitely, John. Thank you so much. I know we have 1 more minute left. I don't see any new questions. So I'll ask one more question. What part of your farm are you taking this call from today, John? I don't think I have seen this background before.
Yeah, you have. It's just because my computer was so slow starting up. It's my basement. So if you go onto my website and you see when I gave my vision statement last year, I got a nice walk-in fireplace and stuff. So it's my office right now.
Okay. With the kind of camo overall you are wearing, John, and the setup, I assume many of Zifo people are thinking, okay, John must have something to do with, you know, military or secret service. You know, you are giving a kind of look today.
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about that yet. I have another 5 years, but no, I'm kidding. Look, all right, you're getting a bonus. Point number 11. Unfortunately, the world has strategized on how to beat each other in wars for thousands of years, right? Lots of great minds, before we had a lot of science and technology, went into military strategy. And so part of my DNA is reading about military strategy and how can I apply that to science, technology, consulting, and business. So I've taken a lot of these military strategies over the years and used them to run projects. Because at the end of the day, and this is just my opinion, at the end of the day, a lot of these strategies were based on life and death, which is really serious. So they better work, because you don't want to be on the death side if it doesn't work. And so I've consumed some of those in the way that I do projects, and I try to focus people or organize people around a strategy or concepts or approaches, and make it work that way. So that's the truth. I just happen to wearing this sweater today because it's really cold out and there's a huge snowstorm coming. But I do believe in military strategy approaches for tackling a lot of the problems we have, because they've worked, right? They've worked over the years, and those were very complex situations where you have to mobilize thousands of people and other things and get things done and win the war. So that's point number 11.
Thanks, John.
I know you probably think that's a little crazy, but you asked, so I told you.
Nothing is crazy anymore, John. It's you need to take each of that part and apply it to your own self and make sense out of it. So what may be crazy to others would make perfect sense to you and me. So
yeah,
that's the kind of world we live in.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, John. I know we sprung it as a surprise, but you handled it masterfully as always. I hope the team learned some interesting approaches and techniques to present themselves and engage in conversations with our customers. And I was just talking to Ayyappan, that we'll probably take the 10, 11 bullet points that you mentioned today, make it a poster and put it in our office so people get to read them every day. But otherwise, thanks.
I forgot point number 12. Point number 12 is listen, right? You want to listen as well as you can.
Yep.
There's the dozen.
John, in Zifo, listening is the first point.
Yeah.
It's almost the first thing that we abide by. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Look, I'm always here too. If anyone, look, I know, again, getting back to what we're saying, people are shy. If you didn't want to ask a question in front of everyone for the reasons that were even brought up, shoot me an email. We'll set up a time to talk. I actually enjoy this, so I like anything I can do to help improve or the perception of improvement. I'm more than happy to do. So just reach out.
That's wonderful, John. Thank you so much.
Okay. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see each other next year.
To you as well, John. Stay safe.
Okay.
Stay.
Safe and healthy. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
for
you,
joining
John.
the call.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Yeah.
Bye.